There are two types of individuals in this world: those who throw insults and those who react to them. The moment you react to an insult, you already lost the fight. Machiavelli knew something that most still don't understand. Insults aren't just hate or disrespect. They're taunts, invitations designed to show you your weaknesses, to show the emotional leash you put yourself on, and how quickly you can be pulled into someone else's frame and story. Most individuals think that by reacting to an insult, they are protecting their reputation or honor, yet what they are actually doing is confirming that the insult found its mark. The moment you respond, the one who insulted knows which buttons to push next to get you to lose your footing again. Worse still, everyone around you witnesses this encounter and witnesses that the insult hit home. How did Machiavelli handle insults then? Not by way of apology, not by way of argument, and never by way of vengeance. Rather, he utilized something much more callous. He took the insult and used it as a means to reorder the entire power structure within the room. Because the actual goal isn't to win the insult war. The actual goal is to demonstrate that you were never really a part of the fight to start with. Once you have that down, the insulter weakens, not you. Let's break this down. First, understand the psychology of an insult. It's never ever merely about what is said. An insult is an escalation test, intended to provoke a certain kind of response. One of three normal responses: defending yourself, thus confirming the attacker's words and acknowledging their effect; retaliating with an attack, demonstrating that you're emotionally invested in the fight; laughing it off, indicating you'd rather get along than meet the challenge directly. But there is a fourth reaction, colder, quieter, and much deadlier. Machiavelli never gave straight responses. He gave frames instead. He knew that whoever controls the frame controls the message. The instant you step into the emotional battlefield of the insulter, you already lost. So he avoided entering that space. He stood above. His silence was heavier than any revenge ever was. His quietude was more intimidating than any flood of words. He never responded to the slur. He remapped what it meant. When a person insulted him, he did not smile and turn his head away. He stared at them silently and intensely, as if to quietly say, "I am not insulted. I am plotting." That was the moment that broke the energy of the whole room. Men do not fear an angry man who strikes out, but they do revere a man who takes an insult in total silence. Why? Because silence sends one overwhelming message. It means the man has had this happen to him time and time again, and has already determined the next course of action. That is a presence, a control. That is why insults no longer worked. When leveled at Machiavelli, the attacker got no instant response. Rather, there was silence followed later by repercussions, indirect, but surgically accurate and crippling. If you wish to shatter someone's mind, don't respond when they anticipate you to burst out with fury. Do not smile when they anticipate you to recoil in agony. Don't move at all. Get them uncomfortable with the sound of their own violence. For when they see that you do not recoil, their power dissipates in front of their eyes. But Machiavelli went beyond silence as just resistance. He understood silence as strategic positioning. When someone insults you in a public place and you don't move, something magical occurs. The mood of the room shifts. Eyes turn to you. The crowd holds its breath and anticipates a tirade, but no tirade ensues. Instead, you gaze at the person who insulted you as if they are beneath your notice, as if they've just exposed their own weakness. This makes the crowd start rereading the incident. They think, why didn't he respond? What does he know that we don't? Is the insult weak? Is the aggressor the fool in the situation? In this manner, you diffuse social perception without even moving your finger, with ease. Here is something most people do not get. Insults only hurt when they strike something deep within you. If you are called a coward, and you are one, you cringe. If you are called weak, and you have an inner fear that you will lie about, you overreact. If your past is ridiculed, and you have not yet accepted it, you go into turmoil. But if you have already conquered your inner demons, if you know and accept your defects without lie, then insults become boomerangs. They strike nothing and come back to the hand from which they were thrown. This is the Machiavellian edge, such razor-sharp self-knowledge that you are invincible. Nobody can use as a weapon what you've already conquered within yourself. Nobody can untangle a man who has already conquered his internal battles. And let us get even colder. Machiavelli sometimes provoked insults on purpose. Why? Because he wanted to expose his adversaries. He knew the first one to insult usually shows their own insecurity, so he constructed atmospheres where others only felt comfortable enough to speak thoughtlessly. He'd make veiled, unclear statements intended to elicit sensitive egos, and as soon as the insult was hurled, the adversary had exposed their emotional vulnerabilities. They could not retract their words or conceal their genuine sentiments. This is the trap everyone else catches. They insult to be strong, but when faced with someone who does not fire back, that pretend strength resolves into embarrassment, clear for everyone to see. The bullies attack to demonstrate something, and fail miserably. To take down a person of great standing, have them insult you before a crowd, remain stone silent. Look at them as if they just committed an error, and walk away without speaking a word. The silence will haunt them like a spectre. The crowd will recall what you didn't say. The lack of your retort will echo far more loudly than any response ever would. Machiavelli never triumphed through browbeating people. He triumphed by seeing the way people hung themselves out to dry and made sure the correct people saw this vulnerability. So the next time you experience insults, ask yourself, do you have to fight, or can you let them tear themselves apart in front of your serene eyes? Because nothing is more Machiavellian than silently letting a man hang himself on his own words while you stand still, untouchable, and in control of the room. There is a reason Machiavelli never thought that clearing one's name was necessary. The second you feel the need to defend your reputation, you have already lost it to someone else. Insults are power probes. They aren't meant to vanquish you. They are to find out if you will vanquish yourself. And this is the error most of us commit. They hear the insult and hurry to defend. That's not true. You misunderstood me. I didn't mean it like that. They think they are fixing the impression. But what they do is surrender their identity to the attacker. Now the bully gets to decide who you are, and you are left negotiating your worth back. Machiavelli knew what this truly was. A trap for the weak. He never stood up for himself. He never apologized. He never disputed misinformation. He just made the lie useless. Because when your energy is not spent, people get the impression that you see things that they do not. They begin questioning the bully more than you. This conquest is not won by argument or refutation, but by a refusal to play their game. And this refusal, carried out with icy calm, does more than silence the assailant. It turns the insult into a mirror that reflects it for what it really is. Not an expression of fact, but a desperate bid for notice. A last hopeless attempt to shake someone who clearly cannot be shaken. And what is more threatening than that? But let us push this concept even further. Machiavelli didn't simply neutralize insults. He mastered the art of using them. He viewed insults as free, unsolicited intelligence. The very moment someone directs an insult at you, especially in a public setting, they are inadvertently revealing three critical truths. Where their mind resides, for insults always reveal more about the psychology of the insulter than about the person they are trying to insult. What they envied secretly, for no one insults what they do not secretly know and are afraid of. How they wish for others to see you, which means they have already deemed you a threat worthy enough to attack. For instance, when someone mocks your discipline, they are more or less revealing insecurity about their own disorder. When they protest your success, they are tormented by their own failures. When they call you arrogant, it is because they have secretly compared themselves to you and lost that inner battle. Machiavelli knew this intuitively. He didn't merely suffer the insult, he deciphered it. Reading between the lines, he found the very weak spot hidden behind the assailant's armor. Most react simply to the sting of the insult itself, ignoring the message beneath. But the Machiavellian is not listening for the sting, but for leverage. The insult directly addresses where they hurt emotionally, where their fears are, and where they examine you most closely. Armed with this information, you know what never to say, and inversely when and how to strike precisely. This ain't defense. This is positional warfare. You refuse to play the insulter's game, and instead let them unknowingly reveal their own vulnerabilities while thinking they have wounded you. Now consider humiliation, because sometimes an insult hits its mark, sometimes it lands loudly, publicly, and unexpectedly. For a moment, you flinch, your expression tightens, your body betrays the reaction. Everyone witnessed it. What do you do next? Machiavelli would advise this. Do not scramble to recover, do not attempt to justify or soften the moment. Instead, do something far colder. Freeze the moment in time, and take it all in without resistance. Fix your gaze on the attacker, not with anger, but with blank, dispassionate awareness, like observing a dog bark without fear or irritation. No smile, no word, no tension. Make everyone feel the silence drag on. Let the weight of unease rest squarely on the insulting party, because now the focus shifts, not on your reaction, but on the way you are seizing the moment. And when you don't crack, something peculiar happens. The room becomes uncomfortable, not for you but for them. They come to understand the attacker can't get any reaction. Their victim isn't moved. What kind of man just takes that? And in that understanding you gain control, not by overwhelming with force, but by not playing the expected part. Everyone is waiting for a show, and the most Machiavellian thing to do is call the play off entirely. But every so often, silence alone won't do. Sometimes a reaction must be made, and when it is, it has to be surgical, precise, and thrifty. Here is the prescription Machiavelli used. Short and to the point. Never engage in lengthy retorts. Pungent, not more than one sentence, and absolutely irrefutable. Your reply must come like a closing argument, never an opening argument. For instance, if someone calls you a pretender, respond with "you'd know." If they call you arrogant, utter, "You're not used to confidence." If called overconfident, respond, "You confuse definitiveness for noise." Then be silent. Let them pursue the echoes of your words. Let the room inhale and process what was said, for at that instant you have done something very rare and strong. You have struck back once, and with such icy precision that nothing more need be said. This is not simply a comeback, it is a cut, and Machiavelli always liked cuts better than clashes. Why? Because clashes bring chaos. Cuts leave heavy silence. Silence that makes witnesses recall what you never said and tremble at what you could still unleash. That is how you really deal with insults, by not participating on their ground, and instead taking control of the whole ring. You change the dynamic, you invert the frame. Each insult is a confession by the attacker, and each silence a verdict you render without the need to say a word, while everyone else just wants to be right. Machiavelli wanted to be unassailable. That is the goal, not to beat the attacker, but to make the attack meaningless. For when people realize that no insult can land on you, they desist from launching them out of generosity. No, but out of fear of what you will do if you ever choose to reply. Within each social encounter, there is a specific moment where power changes hands, not due to what one says, but due to how one deals with being disrespected. Machiavelli was well familiar with this moment. He did not wait for insults to stop. He waited for the appropriate insult to find out who had the real balance of power, and when it came along, he did not react emotionally. Rather, he turned the insult into a public embarrassment, not for himself, but for the fool who dared speak it. Let us break down exactly how this is accomplished. When someone insults you, they are taking a gamble. They are wagering on your insecurity. Their intent is to corner, provoke, or unsettle you. But if you have trained and fortified your inner world, rehearsed stillness as rigorously as some rehearse comebacks, you will do what they never expect. You will turn the social atmosphere against them. Here's how. Imagine the insult surfaces mid-conversation, subtle, sarcastic, and public. Most would either choke on an awkward laugh or snap back emotionally. Machiavelli's method was different. He would let the insult hang in the air, untouched, like a spoiled fruit dropped onto cold marble. He would let the silence grow and fill the space. Then, with complete calm, he'd choose one of three responses. Pose a genuine question. For example, is that really how you see me? In an instant, the insulter is put into a position of defense. They have to defend or take credit for their words to the world. Most of them will fail. They do an about face. No, no, I didn't mean it like that. It was only a joke. Chill. And with that concession, you have already won, because what the room observes is an empty threat. The dominance of the attacker is performative and tenuous. Your serenity has induced them to deny their own insult, and a man who recoils from his own words loses face. Machiavelli lived on flaunting that crack. Parrot the insult matter-of-factly. No modulation of tone, no humor, no sarcasm. You think I'm a fake. You think I'm weak. You tell me I'm not worthy of respect. This isn't weakness. This is containment and control. You show them that you've heard the insult, but won't play into the emotional script they think they're dictating. Now the room falls quiet, not because of you, but because of the cold light you've illuminated on the insult. Most insults are based on timing, tone, distractions. Their strength is surprise and manipulation of the crowd. But when you rein them in and take the performance away, onlookers wonder, that was petty, not powerful. The attacker is small, not because you shamed them outright, but because you stood up a mirror and let silence furl their act. Steer the spotlight away completely. This is the most sophisticated strategy. Allow the insult to be delivered, but immediately shift the conversation as if nothing weighty had been said, not with disdain, but with elegant calmness of the person who never even acknowledged the shot being fired. Anyway, as I was saying, let's bring the focus back here. This strategy does something strong. It publicly demotes the insult to irrelevance. The insulter is essentially disregarded. The audience sees no fissure in your demeanor, and the story effortlessly moves on from them. Now the attacker is trapped. Either they escalate and reveal desperation, or they fall silent and accept defeat. Either choice secures your victory over the frame. Machiavelli sits real objective, erasing the insult sips power. Machiavelli's intent was never simply to win the exchange of insults. His ambition was to strip the insult of its influence altogether. He didn't stoop to defend himself, nor did he counter with force. Instead, he allowed the insult to dissolve, absorbed by silence, redirected by presence, until its sting was forgotten by all. Going even darker, strategic ownership. But it can go deeper. Sometimes the best way to kill an insult is to claim it on your own terms. This is strategic ownership. If someone calls you ruthless, you reply, I prefer precise. Called manipulative, you reply, people get discipline mixed up with control. Disparaged because of your history, you say, it built me. Nothing in my existence goes to waste. This strategy breaks down their attack framework, transforming what had been used as a tool into the basis for your legend. Where they anticipated resistance, you provide none. Instead, the insult becomes entangled within your mythos. Witnesses will start to wonder if this is what they're throwing at him, and he doesn't even flinch. Perhaps it's true. Perhaps that's his strength. This is where Machiavelli excelled, converting attack to signal, shame to admiration, insult to reputation. Pursuing the proper insult, Machiavelli never fled from insults. Actually, he solicited them at the appropriate time, from the appropriate individuals, because every publicized insult conveys a message to all who behold it. I perceive this person as a threat. No one takes to jesting at someone they deem inconsequential. Disrespect is an attempt to reduce you to nothing. The moment you show up, attack is unavoidable. The weak fear it, the mediocre resent it, the Machiavellian anticipates and even welcomes it. Every insult is a challenge to demonstrate that you're not merely put together, you're invincible, not by being better, but by demonstrating you don't even need to respond. You win before a word is ever uttered. Redefining the room with stillness. Master the reaction, and you arrive at the turning point, where the entire room's energy is reconfigured, not because you responded, but because you didn't. The air rearranges itself to your calm. This is Machiavelli's objective, not confrontation, not ovation but dominance by stillness. The person who attempted to embarrass you starts to doubt themselves. That is the start of their undoing. The true secret, overlooked by the majority, is that an insult derives its strength from expectation. If your response never comes, the attacker's weapon backfires in public. Now they are revealed as insecure and desperate, themselves exposed by your calm. Machiavelli constructed his reputation fortress on this foundation, not through threats or incisive language, but through never responding. When a man becomes impenetrable, he becomes impossible to predict, and unpredictability is threatening. When silence provokes escalation, if you become the sort of person who never defends, never excuses, never fights back at sneers or at slander, something strange occurs. The attacks don't become less frequent, they become more frequent. Why? Because your silence is a provocation, laying bare the attacker's desperation at failing to control. They up the ante, louder, uglier, more personal. But the more you refuse to respond, the more clearly you emphasize their desperation. Your nonchalance broadcasts, "I have nothing to prove, you clearly do," and each futile outburst turns the spotlight from your supposed weakness to their obvious insecurity. This is exactly what Machiavelli was referring to when he wrote, "A prince must learn to be strong even in stillness, not to intimidate, but to create a presence so solid, even the sharpest barbs miss." Each time you allow an insult to die in silence, you're not passive, you are in control of the atmosphere. There are times when silence is not the grand finale. Every so often you react, not to defend, but to surgically reconfigure the dynamic. The Machiavellian counter-insult isn't a tried and true comeback. It's a deliberate crack, a statement so flat and even that it cuts below notice. You talk loudest when you don't know. You must have needed that worse than I did. Interesting. I wouldn't have said that about myself quite so fast. This is not revenge. It's social surgery. You don't counter. You don't strike back. You make a moment of discomfort that forces everyone to reevaluate what just happened. The one doing the insulting is cornered, escalate and seem crazy, back down and seem weak. And you did it with fewer than 10 words. Accuracy with no unnecessary effort. The long game, most humans forget insults once the emotional high point is over, but to Machiavelli, every slight is a sign, a signal that someone perceives you as a threat, that there is a story being developed, that seeds are being planted for down the road. His reaction? Don't act in the moment. Rather, take it all in. Who said what? How? In front of whom? For what reason? Down the road, when it is convenient for you, you act, estranging them, denuding their power, planting subtle doubt. You provoke their friends with light-hearted interest. Is that how he always is? That caught me off guard. You never call them an enemy. Let others make their own conclusions. Before long, the abuser isn't flinging insults. They're providing explanations, apologizing for exaggerating, receding, shrinking from the presence of the man they originally attempted to belittle. Commandments of insult control, seared into your brain. Burn these strategies. Never respond when they're expecting it. Never argue when they challenge your reputation. Never clarify when they misquote you. Never jest when they seek to try your temper. Never retaliate when silence will bury them further. Let the insults speak for them, not you. Let your silence be a question, not an affirmation. Let your quiet be the tale others tell and retell. For the man who flinches will always be the target, but the one who takes it and looks on becomes the mystery, the presence that grows without effort, the reputation that spreads unaided, with no single defensive word. And that is the Machiavellian insult comeback, not overpowering, but letting everyone know that attempting to humiliate you is a suicide mission, one that will obviously leave the attempted attacker humiliated by their own effort.